Hello, my name is Kent Field, and thank you for tuning into this YouTube channel, The Bible versus Opinions. God bless you in your search for the truth. While all people have opinions on many subjects, including the Bible and religion, not all opinions carry the same weight or value. For example, would you go to a plumber for his advice on brain surgery? Would you go to a mechanic for his advice on heart surgery? The point is, not all opinions carry the same weight or value on a particular subject. That's why I'm not offering you my mere opinion, but Bible answers alone. So here's the challenge. Are you open to learning beyond your current understanding and knowledge of the Bible? If so, then this channel is for you. If these studies have helped you to grow in your understanding of the Bible, or even life itself, please like and subscribe and share this channel with others so that they too may be challenged and grow in their understanding of the Scriptures.
In Acts chapter 16 and verses 1 through 5, we have Timothy again meeting up with a young disciple. In Acts 16 verse 1 it says, "And he came also to Derbe and to Lystra. And behold, a certain disciple was there." A certain what? Disciple. Named Timothy, the son of a Jewish woman who was a believer, but his father was a Greek. Now it sounds like the father wasn't a believer, it doesn't sound like, because it made a specific point about saying his Jewish mother was a believer, but his father was a Greek. It was a mixed marriage. And he, that is Timothy, was well spoken of, recommended by the brethren who were in Lystra and Iconium. Two places. I mean, Timothy started to set himself apart from other people. Right? And Paul wanted this man to go with him. Right? Why? Again, he's applying the same thing he told Timothy later on. "The things which you've heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, the same I want you to commit to faithful men who will in turn be able to teach others also." Timothy obviously proved this. He was well spoken of, and Paul says, "I want to take this guy with me on my missionary journeys." And he took him and circumcised him. Why? Because in order to be a Christian, you have to be circumcised. Wrong. Wrong. Paul will resist that in the case of Titus. When people wanted to push Titus to be circumcised, he said, "Nope, not for an hour, not for a minute am I going to put up with this. You cannot bind circumcision on Christians." Galatians 2 and verse 3. Galatians 2 and verse 3 says that. But wait a minute. Then why did he take Timothy, who was already well spoken of, was a grown man, who was already out there doing the work of the Lord, and now he took him and he circumcised the guy? Why? It says why. "Because of the Jews that were in those parts, for they all knew his father was a Greek." He wanted to make him all things to all men, that by all means he might save a few. He wanted to keep him from being unclean. He wasn't himself circumcised because of his father's influence in the family. And he didn't need to be. He was already a Christian, a disciple who was well spoken of. Did Timothy have to be circumcised in order to be a Christian? No. Did Timothy have to be circumcised in order to go with Paul in that missionary journey? Yes.
Say it again?
Did Timothy have to be circumcised in order to be a Christian?
Well, verse 3, right. Yeah, verse 3. Yeah.
He did not have to be circumcised to be a Christian. He already was a Christian. Did Timothy have to be circumcised to go with Paul on that missionary journey? Yeah, otherwise he wouldn't have put him through that pain. Why? Well, because he wanted him to be able to reach out to other people in that area. And to not have his not being circumcised as a stumbling block. How would they know? Well, I'm not going to get into that in too great a detail, but when people relieved themselves back in those days, They were not as shy. And even in Ephesus, the toilets were outside and public.
They knew his father was a Greek.
And they knew his father was a Greek. Yeah, but even still.
But see, the Jewish people wouldn't take them seriously. You're not even a Jew, your father's a Greek. Like, that was
Right.
proof, like, look, I am, you know.
I'm not even going to listen to you. You're goy. You're unclean.
Just to make them more successful.
Right. So just to be more effective, he went out and got circumcised. I don't think they gave him general anesthesia, gave him a little tuna fish sandwich and a cracker and a little glass of ginger ale after he woke up, said, how you doing? Gave him plenty of ibuprofen or naproxen or some other painkillers and salve and all this stuff to help him heal, which could take for a grown male, months, because you keep tearing your stitches or your wounds. I know because I know somebody as a 33-year-old man that got circumcised. And it was a very painful thing for him. I'm not talking about myself, but a very painful thing for him. For a long time, for weeks and weeks and weeks.
I heard that.
Okay, so this was important. He wanted to take him. He was the disciple. But in order to qualify as a disciple of Paul in this circumstance, he had to do a little bit of extra, didn't he? Not to be a Christian. Let's get that straight. So many people would say, you know, I'll go with you, but I ain't going to do this. I'll go with you, but I'm not going to give up that. Don't you remember the young people that would go to Jesus and say, I want to follow you? And he'd say, okay, sell everything you got and come follow me. And they would go away sorrowful, for they had much. Or somebody will else say, well, I will follow you, but let me go first. You know, my father's not dead yet, but let me go bury my father. Let me put my affairs in order, and then I'll come follow you. He says, nobody, after putting his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of heaven. You want to follow me, you got to be prepared to give it all up. Now that's Jesus saying that about following him. That's why Timothy's decision, if he wanted to be Paul's disciple, was such an easy one. And that's why he was already well spoken of in Lystra and Iconium. In Acts chapter 13, verse 13, we have an instance where somebody deserts Paul. And it doesn't even sound like it's a desertion, but it is. And we'll see why. Now, Paul and his companions put out to sea from Paphos, and he came to Perga in Pamphylia. And John left them and returned to Jerusalem. It almost sounds like a passing thing. That John left them and went back to Jerusalem. And it goes on to say, it doesn't say why or anything. But in Acts chapter 15, it became a sore point. To the point where Paul and Barnabas ended up parting company for a while. It says in verse 36 of Acts 15, and after some days, Paul said to Barnabas, let's return and visit the brethren in every city in which we proclaim the word of the Lord and see how they are. So let's go back and revisit them. And Barnabas was desirous of taking John, called Mark, along with them also. But Paul kept insisting that they should not take him along, who had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not gone with them to do the work. So he did desert them. Paul felt deserted, didn't he? Who deserted them? John Mark. Who laid the criteria for coming with me on a missionary journey? Paul. Who has the right to do that? Paul. He had the same right later on when he does it with Timothy and says, all right, you want to come with me? Get circumcised. Did you miss that? Probably did. Probably did. So now he has the right. And there arose, verse 39, such a sharp disagreement that they separated from one another. They had an argument over this. And Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed away to Cyprus. But Paul, and that's, he's done. We don't hear from him for now. But Paul chose Silas and departed, being committed by the brethren to the grace of the Lord, and he was traveling through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches. Who is continuing to follow here? We're continuing to follow now Paul and his efforts and what he's doing, and he was committed by the brethren. Seems like even though there was a big argument, Paul won that argument. Barnabas was more of an emotional type. He was the son of encouragement. That's his name. And that's why he was an encourager. He was the first to take Paul and take him to the Jewish brethren and say, he's okay, he's one of us. So,
It doesn't sound like he was cursed for doing what he did.
no, but one was clearly blessed and clearly praised by the brethren, and the other one just went on his way. But later on, I just want to share with you that there are second chances. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11, 2 Timothy 4, verse 11, it says, that only Luke is with me. Pick up Mark and bring him with you. He's talking about John Mark here. For he is useful to me for service. So he became useful again. Something changed. He proven himself. And Paul said, I want him to come to be with me before I die. He'll be helpful to me. He'll be an encouragement. He'll be useful to me.
Thanks for being a part of that study segment. I promise you that, Lord willing, there's more to come. With the understanding that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure, many of these studies have been broken up into a series of bite-sized segments. So be sure to look for the next segment in each Bible study subject, so you won't miss out on any important information. Please like and subscribe if you feel that this lesson's helped you, and God bless you in your search for truth.